Hey YouTube, this is JC Fish doing a product review on the Aqua C EV240 protein skimmer. Uh, I'll tell you what I like about it, and I'll tell you what I don't like about it. Starting with what I like about it. See, the reason why I even bought this skimmer is because of the technology behind it. Uh, this, I believe this company, Aqua C, has the patent on it. But basically, this is a spray injection skimmer. Now, how it works is it pretty much, uh, you pretty much pump a large amount of water into the system, into the reaction chamber, where it hits a spray nozzle that basically creates an insane amount of micro bubbles and for the reaction in the neck. Um, how this works is I'll show you. Uh, this piece here that I'm screwing off is where your tube will connect to. Your tube will connect there from your pump, and your water pump will usually be sitting on the floor of your sump or wherever you may have it, but this is where the tube connects to. And if you see on the bottom here, there's like a little nozzle. This is basically constricting the water and creating bubbles. Now that type of technology, it's almost like, you know, putting your hand or your finger over a hose when it's on full pressure, and putting putting it underneath some water to create suds. Now that is, you really can't beat that as far as bubble production, because not too many skimmers can run a pump pumping 1,800 gallons an hour. And this is what this skimmer, the Aqua C EV240, they recommend the Mag 18 for this skimmer, and that pumps like I said, 1,800 gallons an hour. And another thing is too, when it was actually skimming, and I'll get into what I mean by that later in the video, it skimmed very well. But going on to what I don't like about it, and the reason why I pulled it, one of the main reasons why I pulled it out of my tank, is the sheer size of this. I mean, I don't know the exact dimensions of it, but I could tell you, you know, it's a rectangular reaction chamber here in this black box, and it looks like it's, you know, it's about like 10 by 8 or 10 by 7, or maybe a little longer. But anyway, when you initially hear that footprint, and if you go on YouTube, if you go on any retailer that sells this, that's not a bad footprint, you know, 10 by 11 or whatnot. And because it's rectangular, it usually fits in, you know, you would think that would fit in your tank quite easily. But what they don't really, you know, to their defense, that is technically the footprint. But here's the thing. This thing has a gate valve that sticks out the front of the skimmer, maybe another 3 inches. And then you have this here. Now this doesn't come with the skimmer, but if you look on YouTube videos and even inside their manual, they suggest, not gonna say they suggest, but this is one of the options that they have in the manual as to what you can do to silence the skimmer. Now basically how this works is the water is pumped from your pump into this nozzle. Here's where the reaction takes place, where your bubbles will start to form here in this box, and it will slowly rise up into the neck, but all the excess water comes out of here. And usually with this skimmer, you know, your water line, most reefers, and I've seen on YouTube videos, and even, you know, my tank itself, my tank set right, my water line was about right here. So I would say like 2, maybe 3 inches below this. So without this on here, the water just comes out and splashes down and creates all types of mess and noise that you don't really want in your sump. And most reefers just don't have the space in their sump to accommodate all this. And what this does to help out is, the water just flows out, just sits below the water line, and the water just flows out there, mitigating the splashing. But most reefers just don't have the space for all this. I mean, this must stick out. This is about like 8 inches from the skimmer box to the end of this, about 8 inches. And that's a problem because this skimmer is actually advertised as an in-sump skimmer. Me personally, I think it's more of an external skimmer. But going on to the next thing, I mean, besides the actual size of it, the next thing that I wanted to point out is the actual tower here. And I'll tell you this is like a huge, to me, it's a huge design flaw. And I'll show you this. Get this skimmer cup off. Now, most skimmers out there, they, the whole design of it, they base it off like a wine glass shape. Now this one is kind of just like, just a cylinder going straight up. And the problem with this here is where your skimmer cup sits on. Now, if you can see that, see this line right here? That's the actual neck. And if you can see, there's a ridge that comes over around this entire skimmer neck. There's a ridge here. Now what that does is it doesn't allow the bubbles, the foam, to come up as easily as possible. So basically your foam will start happening down here and it's rising up and it will hit this. And what I have noticed is when it's hitting this, the bubbles are actually collapsing here. And basically what that is doing is it's creating skimmate, more skimmate than it needs to be, all in the base and the bottom of your neck. Now people will say, oh, you didn't have it tuned right, or this, that, and the third. I just want to tell you, yes, I did have this thing tuned correctly. I followed the directions thoroughly. I called Aqua C. They had me. By the way, their customer support is very, very good. I do want to point that out. There's you call them, there's a person that will actually pick up. They don't, leave you on hold. There's no answering machine. There's no, oh, well, leave a message, we'll email you guys back. No, there's an actual person that will talk to you and help you out with any questions that you need. I just wanted to point that out. But, and they were very helpful. But, the way they want you to tune this is you have to this gate valve controls the amount of water, your water level in the skimmer. And basically how they want you to put this is they want the water level equal to the top of this black box. So from here all the way up to from here, nothing should be all foam. You may have some turbulence, and even in the manual they say that the turbulence kind of bounce up and down, but mainly the water level is supposed to be here. And that's how I had it. Also, this is supposed to be out of the water. You don't want to have this submerged at all. And so I had this thing tuned properly, and it just, that's one of the problems I had. There was so much skimmate being built here, and it's not making it up to the collection cup. And that's why I was mentioning before the wine glass shape. Most skimmers, they manufacture their skimmers that way so that the bubbles have as smooth as possible surface to rise up from the bottom and all the way up, and eventually spilling over into the collection cup. But this here, this ridge, that's just, you know, not good at all. That's not good. And like I said, I believe this is a huge design flaw. Going over to the last thing that no, actually, here's another thing. I'm sorry, but the pump usually will sit on the floor. It's a Mag 18. This is me probably just nitpicking about it, but you have a pump that's pumping 1,800 gallons an hour. That's a lot of pressure. And maybe like a tube no more than 2 feet from your pump to this nozzle. Now all it is here from the top of this skimmer box, this is all exposed out of the water. So you're supposed to have your tube connected here, and you know, you put a ratcheting clamp on there, and you put, you know, any tube holder to ratchet this down and hold this in place. And like I said, this is me nitpicking, but it always kind of made me worried that this tube will eventually come off and I will have 1,800 gallons an hour pressured pump spraying water all in my sump and on my floor. Like, this kind of always bugged me. And like I said, most skimmers will have the pump somehow attached towards the bottom of the skimmer, or on the side, and that's usually submerged in water, so you wouldn't have to worry about something like that. But having a tube connected here, and like I said, 1,800 gallons of about 1,800 gallons an hour pressured pump pumping water straight to this, that really just bugged me, and I didn't like that. But going on to the last thing, here's another thing that bothered me with my system, and I'll show you my system in another video. By the way, my collection cup cracked a long time ago. I was able to actually glue it back together with some Gorilla Glue, and it still holds water. But anyway, going back to my last gripe about this skimmer is with my system, I don't do a lot of water changes. What I like to turkey base the rocks, and agitate the sand a lot. And what I notice about this skimmer is it's very, very sensitive. And what I mean by that is, normally when your skimmer is broken in and it's doing its thing, you will have foam going all the way up here, and the bubbles should be breaking around like this area here. But like I said, with the design flaw with this skimmer, most of the bubbles break right here. But a working skimmer, a good skimmer, the bubbles should be breaking a little bit above, about right here. That's where you want it. But so I will be going to, I'll just be randomly walking past my tank, open up my cabinet door, and the foam will just collapse. What I mean is, like, the bubbles usually are here, now they're down here, and it's because, like, there was like some oils or whatever you may have put in your tank caused the reaction to collapse, and it's just basically waiting to get rid of that oil so that the foam production can start building back up again. But there'd be some times where I didn't add anything to my tank, I didn't put my hand in the tank, and I would just randomly come by and the foam is down here. Not to mention when I do a water change and I'm agitating the rocks and I'm agitating the sand to try to get some of that moam or detritus out of the sand, and this is when I really want my skimmer to really start pulling that stuff out. But instead, the bubbles will just collapse down, and it will sometimes last all the way until the next day, sometimes even more. And so so this whole time I have all these these detritus in the water column where my skimmer should be working to pull this all out, it's not doing anything. So that's really what, you know, what bothered me about this skimmer. I had it for a year, but you know, it's time to replace it, and I actually did replace it. And I will, you know, stay tuned for, by the way, this is my first video, and I will be doing more videos on different products and educational videos on my system. So, you know, stay tuned. This is part one of basically, like, I'm gonna do a skimmer comparison. So this is like a part one of the video. Part two will be, I'll show you the skimmer that I replaced it with, and give you some feedback on that one. So this is again JC Fish, and I'm signing out. Thanks guys for watching. If you like it, subscribe.